Hello YouTube, welcome back to the Basement Card Collector. Today's video is going to be a VR for the channel, Vintage on Vintage. Steve, he is celebrating his 200th subscriber by doing a contest, a very cool contest. I actually found out about his channel by watching another YouTuber that I love to watch, John, 3D80s Kid. He was making a VR for Steve at Vintage on Vintage. I thought, what a cool idea. So I checked out his channel and watched a couple of his videos. He is celebrating 200. He is asking you to show the top 5 MLB players that share your birthday. What a cool idea. So I'm digging through cards, looking for players that have the birthday of December 25th. That is my birthday. I just turned 43 this past Christmas. And I went digging through some cards and did some reading. I did find 5, I'm going to call my top 5 players that share December 25th as a birthday like myself. I will leave a channel link to Steve. You should go check out this channel, Vintage on Vintage. Like I said, 200 subs. I've watched 4 or 5 videos. He has a video that just showed his birthdays and Christmas pickups. Man, Santa Claus must love this guy. He picked up some really great cards, a couple Mickey Mantles, which I think is what I want to try getting this year somewhere, my first playing card mantle. But you should check that out. There's also a link for this for the contest. I will put that video link in the description below. But in honor of the title name of the channel, Vintage on Vintage, I pulled out a couple of vintage Cubby cards, and how about this 1966 Cubs and Sox schedule. You can see it's pretty beat up, but I got it from a super cool, and if you look, it's the 1966 schedule. Some hams. Got White Sox on one side and the Cubbies on the other. Isn't that cool? So that's one of my vintage, and I have a 1965 Billy Williams, pretty beat up, but just love that set. And I kept my Andre Dawson just because. And I just picked up my second Banks playing card a few weeks ago back at my card shop. So my vintage, I made a Dawson sandwich there with my Billy Williams and Ernie Bank Vintage on Vintage. Let's get to the top 5 players in my rankings of December 25th birthdays. And we'll go from 5 to the top just because. How about that? In number 5, Mr. Gene Lamont. He's a coach here on this 1993 Topps with Don Baylor. He has the birthday of December 25th. He also was a player, later became a coach, and he's just a guy that I recognize. There were a handful of players actually born on December 25th. So my 5th place, Gene Lamont. Coming in 4th place, very solid player really, Willie Taveras. All-Star card, Sporting News, I think is 96 Topps. He was Rookie of the Year runner-up to Ryan Howard, Philly slugger, but he was a really decent leadoff guy, stole some bases, had a pretty good average, played for a few teams, but in 4th place for me, Rookie of the Year runner-up, Willie Taveras. Number 4, number 3. Actually, finding cards for this player was actually kind of easy because I have a small pile of cards I'm about ready to send out TTM, and actually have him in my pile of 2 sends. So in 3rd place, he is a former Philly and Cub, Mr. Manny Trio. So you got a 78 Topps. I'm not so sure which ones I'm going to be sending out to him for the TTM, but I just usually do that when I send out cards. I make a stack and then go through and kind of cut out a... Here he is. A fielding record was set back in the 83 Topps. I do love that 89 Topps. Very solid fielder, utility man near the end. We're going to put Manny Trio in my 3rd place. December 25th. This next guy, really, I thought I had a card, but I don't. So I had to dig into my That reprint kind of old-timer card list, Nellie Fox. 15-time All-Star, MVP in 59, almost 3,000 hits. I think he had like 2,700. Yep, almost 2,700. But 15-time All-Star? How do you, I mean, Hall of Famer. There is a, but I don't have a playing days card of him, so I had to dig out this old guy. So Nellie Fox would be my number 2. In terms of players from the MLB, there was a Hall of Famer from the early 1900s, late 1800s. Pud Gavin is also a Hall of Famer. I couldn't find any cards, even on reprint cards, and I thought I would have one in there for sure of him. But without a doubt, the number 1 player from the MLB on December 25th, Mr. Rickey Henderson. And what I did for my Rickey Henderson cards, I pulled out a small stack of just kind of a fun card. Not many people may have seen this. Just a cool card, Topps Kids. Here he is with Lou Brock when he broke the stolen base record. Just kind of a cool picture with the all-time greats there holding the bag. And I remember 2 famous quotes from Rickey Henderson. He is a very outgoing character if you've read about him or heard stories of his. I picked 2 stories that I think are just classic Rickey Henderson stories. Here holding the bag when he stole third base to break that record. If you recall, Lou Brock was in attendance that day. And once Rickey stole the base, you know, they pause the game. They bring out, I assume, a reporter or somebody with a microphone. And today, with Lou Brock standing like inches away from Rickey Henderson, he breaks out the famous quote, "Today I consider, you know, myself the greatest," like with Lou Brock right next to him. So not the most humble person, but he was telling everybody how great he was right in front of the other, you know, I just thought that was cool. I have 2 other kind of quick Rickey stories that, and as I'm telling the stories here, I pulled 4 or 5 cards here from teams that you may have forgotten that Rickey Henderson played for. We all know him as an Oakland Athletic. I think he played with them 3 different times. He was a Yankee most of his 25 years, I think. Most of the time went between those 2 teams. But I have 4 or 5 cards here I'll show you of other teams. So when I was, it's been a long time ago, but there was a guy named Mike Gallego, played middle infield for the A's, and I think when they had Rickey in a contract year, somebody asked him, you know, hey, you know, what do you think you're worth? What do you know, what kind of money should you be getting? He went through and he told a famous quote, which I'll never forget. He told the reporter, hey, you want to pay me like Gallego? I'm going to hit like Gallego. Which, again, just like throwing your teammates under the bus a little bit. But again, I don't know if he was known for being so humble. He's known for being like, you know, probably the greatest leadoff man ever in history. 3,000 hits, the most stolen bases, the most runs. I think the most walks. He either was or is the all-time, but for sure runs and stolen bases. And I want to say walks, but I had to double check that. And the other story, if I go back here real quick, in Seattle, Rickey bounced around at the end. He played a little bit in Seattle at the very end. Well, when he gets to Seattle, what year is this? Like, 2000, right there at 2000. He gets to Seattle, and there's a first baseman, John Olerud, who was now also in Seattle. He and Rickey are now teammates in Seattle. Well, apparently at one point, Rickey Henderson goes up to John Olerud when he first meeting the team, you know, getting to know the new Mariners, I suppose. He tells a story of, hey, I used to play with a guy in Toronto that wore that same hard shell helmet to play first base, because I played with a guy that also wore one of those back in like the 90s. Well, it was the same guy, of course. John Olerud is the only guy I think that has worn that hard shell hat, and so Rickey didn't even realize that it was the same guy. So just kind of funny how he's just big league. He just seems like a really awesome dude. So here he was a Met. He went to Toronto. I think he got a ring out of one of those years, one of the back-to-back Toronto rings. Here he is in San Diego. I think he had his 3,000th hit with the Padres, if I'm not mistaken. And then here, how about this? Here in Anaheim, he was an angel. Angel in the outfield, Rickey. So anyway, just a couple cards that are just kind of random. He also has a Red Sox card, which I couldn't find for the video. But, so we're going to put him over here. We're going to put that Topps Kids cards on display there. And it wouldn't be a Rickey list without the 80 Topps. And it's actually a graded card, which I have only 2 cards that are graded. This one baseball card and one football card. But I bought the 80 Topps set from an antique store, and the guy had this card actually taped in the PSA case on top of the 800 count box to kind of sell it for, you know, to say, hey, I do have the Rickey card. It is graded. Now you got to pay me a little bit more, but it's only a 6. It's nothing too crazy. So there you go. The 5 MLB players that share the same birthday as myself, December 25th. Rickey Henderson, by far the #1 player from the MLB. That'll do it. That's my list. December 25th, Steve at Vintage on Vintage, having a little contest going until the end of the month of January. I will leave a link to that video in the description. And that'll do it. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.